Advanced Reporting. My name is Ros Hodgson, and in the next hour I'm going to be taking you through some of the advanced features of QuickBooks Online Reporting. So what we're going to be covering in the next hour, I'm going to be giving you some top tips for running and customizing your reports. We're going to look at some key reports that are going to give you great insight into yours or your client's business. We'll look at running using classes and locations for segmenting your client's work. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at using cash flow and running cash flow reports in QuickBooks Online. So let's go over to QuickBooks Online then. So here we are. We're in our client's file, and the name of our client is Club Camera. So let me introduce the client to you first. So this client runs a store where they supply high-end SLR cameras to the public. We're going to start by looking at how they've done in the last year. And in this session, we're going to concentrate particularly on the sales of this client. So you'll see me run reports today by going into reporting on the left menu. You'll see me use the accountant tools, and also on the top right, you'll see me using the search bar to also search for reports. So I'm going to start over on the left in my reports menu. I'm going to select reports. It lands me into the reporting module. I'm going to start, like I said, with a simple profit and loss, because we just want to see how the client's done and performed in the last year. So my report is already set to January and December. Now that's not a fluke. It's set to January and December because in my accountant tools, I preset that by going to report options and I selected last year. Okay, so that's how QuickBooks knows for this report I want to look at to 2020. These settings will work for the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and the reclassifying of transactions. All right, so back to my report, back to my profit and loss. It's set to last year, and what I want to see, I can see how they've done. Okay, so I can see that they've had what looks like a reasonable year. They've just done short of £1 million. But I want to see how does that look over the entire year. So to do that, I'm going to go to the dashboard of my report, and I'm going to go to the display columns by. And instead of just seeing the totals, I want to see how they've done month by month. So I'm going to months, and then I'm going to run this report. All right, so we're getting a better picture of how the year has gone. You can see new camera sales was their norm in terms of what they've sold. And then, surprise, surprise, April lockdown 1. You can see already in March, they started to reduce almost half. And in April, their sales disappeared. But look at what else is happening here. In terms of online equipment, great client. They've realized that they need to pivot, and they've started selling online equipment instead. And we see those sales have steadily picked up. You know, everybody wanted them in July, and then they've remained steady for the remainder of the year. Now, what I want to show you is how you can customize reports to get more granular detail. So the first thing that I want to show you is firstly on this report. This is a good way to use QuickBooks. We've used the income account and we've specified the type of sales we want to record. That's the top 3. The bottom 3 the bottom 2, if you like. These 2 are how not to do it. Just by having an account that's called sales or sale of product income is just too generic. It's not telling us what we need to know. So I want to get some finer details now about this client and how their year has gone. I want to save this report because it's a useful report. So nice and straightforward, I'm going to simply change the name of the report first on the face of the report. And I'm going to call it the Profit and Loss 2020. Okay. Having changed the name, I'm then going to go at the top right and save this customization. It's remembered the name of my report, Profit and Loss 2020. I'm simply going to save that report. Fantastic. Now that report is saved, let's just go and have a quick look where we're going to find that saved report. So back over to my reports on the left menu. And this time I'm going into my custom reports in the middle. And here you'll see I've got my profit and loss for 2020 and there's my report. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So the next thing that I want to show you is going back now to my, in fact, I'm just going to run that report. There's my profit and loss. I know how much I've sold in camera sales, online equipment, etc. But that's only half the story. Within each of these categories, there is a range of products and services that this report is not telling me about. I want to not only know how much I've sold, but which ranges are doing better, okay? So for that, I'm actually going to my products and services. I'm going to sales and let's look at products and services. This is how to avoid just having a total on your P&L that says sales. When you create a sales invoice or a sales receipt, what's really useful is to set up actual product and service. So if you're selling stock, you can create a stock item. If you have services that you perform, you can see I've created service items. And this way you're able to set definitive prices and codes to help you track. And the key thing here is we want to track what the client has sold. I just want to show you what one of these looks like in the setup in case you've not used these before. So I'm going into my web camera 2 and I'm selecting edit. You can see the setup here. Every time I sell a web camera, I'm tracking the income as online equipment. Of course, it's tracking it as a stock asset and it's tracking the expense or the sale as an online equipment cost of sale item. Okay, so I'm going to come out of this and just show you what this looks like on a sales receipt. So I'm going to go to new and I'm going to look at a previous sales receipt. I'm just going to refresh my screen. So on this sales receipt, what you can see is how we have split the income. Okay, so we've taken this. Now this might be if you're selling online through e-commerce, through those reports from your till report, but we've split the income by product and service. Okay, so that's going to allow me to run great reports. So coming out of my sales receipt then and going back to my reports, I'm going to run a sales report by product. Now, if you've never run a sales report by product before, if you go to standard and if you scroll down, you'll find a whole section on sales reports. But you know what? Even if you don't know what the report is called, but you want a report on products, if you just type product in the search box, I'm going to choose the sales by product service summary report. So what I'm interested in is what product lines we've been selling and for the same period, which was last year. Now remember what I said, that the report tools only work on the P&L, the balance sheet and the reclassified transactions. So here you can see, here are my sales of cameras. I've got both Canons and reconditioned Canons. I've got my seller fees. I've got services that I provide and I've got my webcams down the bottom. Now what you'll notice is that my sales are grouped in these predefined categories. Okay, that's because I not only set up the service item, but I set up the categories as well. So now when I look at the sales for the client, not only can I see the overall sales, I can see them by category. So I can see how many cameras he sold and also I can see how many services he's sold. Webcams have not grouped together, and that's because I've not created a category or I've not grouped them together. So I'm going to show you how you can do that, because the more improvements that you make on the setup, the better information you're going to get for your clients. So back over to sales, and I'm going to products and services. So here at the top are my web cameras. And what I've already done was I created categories. So the way that you do that is at the top in the More button. This is where you would manage categories. Now, I already have a category for web equipment. You just create a new category if you need one. So all I want to do now is to assign these products to that category. So the way that I'm going to do that is select the relevant products, and then top right, I'm going to assign the category to web equipment. Okay, so let's go back to that report. Sales by product summary report. Let's run this now for last year, and then run report. Now I can see my cameras, my seller fees, my services, and a total now for web equipment. You'll notice at the bottom that I have this area here that says not specified. And that's because this report is tracking all sales and all income. So let's see what's in this not specified, because it may be that we want to actually assign it a service or a product. So when I look in here, I can see that this actually is sort of miscellaneous income. It's nothing to do with actual product or services. And in fact, in here is also his bounce back loan. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to that report summary, and I'm going to choose to exclude not specified from my report. It's not a useful measurement of sales of product. So in order to do that, I'm going to scroll to the top, and I'm going to go to my customise button. Okay. And where I want to go is to the filter. Now, every report has its parameters, and filter allows you to add or to take away from those parameters. So I'm going to go into filter, and I can change the filter for any of the preset criteria. So in my instance, it's product and service that I want to edit. So I'm going to select this. And what I'm actually going to do is I want it to select everything, but not the not specified. So the way to do that is to do select all, check that there are no categories that I don't want, and then run the report. And now you see the uncategorized or not specified has gone. And for the client, not only can I see their sales, but I can see really clearly what's being sold. Now, the benefit of this is now I look at cameras and I can see which is the best selling camera. Well, it's the SLR-002. And what's the profit margin on that? It's 22%. And what was the amount of income? It was 68,000. But actually, even though I sold less of the SLR-005, I bought in 128,000 and the gross margin was 34%. So it's giving my client information in terms of which lines they may need to promote or sell more of in order to increase their profit margin. Okay, so I like this report. We're going to save this report. We're going to change the name, and we're just going to call it sales by product I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to save this customization. It's remembered the name, but now this is my second report. So what I think I'll do is I'll create a group so I can put these reports together and send them to the client as one pack of reports. So in order to do that, I'm going to add a new group. I'm going to name it here in this second box. So let's just call these sales reports 2020, and we need to add here. Okay, so let's save these reports, and then let's pop back over to our report section to see what it looks like now that we put it in a group. So I'm going to custom reports. Here are my sales reports, and there's my sale by product. Now, although this is just the P&L, I want to put it in my sales report because I think it's a useful report when I'm sending this to the client. So now I want to add this profit and loss to my sales report. In order to do that, I'm going to come over here to the edit button. And you can see here, I can now add this report to an existing group. Save and close. And now I have 2 reports in my sales reports so far. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy that I can see my sales by product. And why this is so useful? Because what gets measured gets managed. And so from this, the client is able to choose what course of action they want to take next. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we've looked at our sales by product. If I take this report and collapse it, the client gets a great overview as well of how they've done. And you could save this and just call it a sales by product summary report, and it will remember the formatting of this report. I'm going to save the customization. I do this time just need to add that this is the summary, and then save this report. Fantastic. Right, so now that we've run that report and we've looked at how we can group things together, I want to move on to working with classes and locations. Okay, we know how many cameras and how many services we've sold, but for this client, because they've pivoted, they were once just selling through a shop and now they've started to sell online. We want to be able to measure those sales in the 2 different cost centers. So in order to do that, I'm going to turn on functionality in QuickBooks called classes and locations. Now this is available only in the Plus version, but I'm going to show you how you turn that on. So I'm going to go up to my settings and go to account and settings. Let me just refresh my screen. Once you're in the account and settings, you want to go to the advanced section and to the categories. Now you can see I've got my class and location already turned on, but when you come here the first time, you'll just need to turn them on here and here. Now this warn me when a class isn't assigned is really useful if you want absolutely everything that you code to go into a class. Okay, if you don't want to turn it on because it reminds you every time you try and save a transaction. Okay, so save this and done. Now you can create classes and locations from any transaction. So let's go into a bill. And you'll see in the bill that we will have a couple of extra fields now where we can record the class and we can record the location. Now I can create these straight from the transaction. I've got 3 set up already. So I've chosen cost centers as admin for my overheads, online and the shop. Okay, but you could add a new one from here. In terms of locations, for this client, what I've chosen is to look at the different selling channels. So they sell via Amazon, eBay, shop sales, or they've also created their own website. So they tried to diversify as much as possible. So what does that look like when we start creating transactions then? Well, if I go back to my reports, and I'm going to run a standard profit and loss report, and this time I'm actually going to choose to see it by class and then by location. Okay, so I'm going to go and change the columns and say I want to see my profit and loss by class, and then run my report. So now what I'm seeing, and remember in this instance I'm concentrating on the sales, maybe the cost of sales, I can see that we've sold £824,000 online and only £99,000 in the shop. Okay, but you'll notice that we've got this additional column again, not specified. Now, once you decide to turn on classes and locations, you might think this is a great idea for my client. However, I've got through a month, 2 months, maybe even 9 months where I haven't been doing this before. So what I'm going to show you is how you can go back and add the class and location if you need to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click into one of these transactions. I'm going to go into my online equipment, and I'm going to go into the source document, which is this sales receipt. And you can see here that I could line by line just add online. Now this is just one transaction, but this would be quite onerous to do this for every line for this transaction. So you'll be pleased to know you don't need to do that. So I'm going to save and close this. This is where the reclassified transactions really comes into its own. So if you've not used it before, you'll find it up in your accountant tools, and here under tools in reclassified transactions. Now this is a way that you can bulk recode transactions within QuickBooks Online. Remember what I said in terms of setting the dates. It's defaulted to last year already. Okay, I can recode items or transactions in the profit and loss, or I could do the balance sheet. So I'm just going to focus on the profit and loss, and I'm going to focus on my income accounts. So I'm going to look at my new camera sales. I can see class and location has been coded here. I'm just going to switch around the order so that I can see any that don't have a code on. So all of these are fine. Let me just switch that one more time. But you can see these sales receipts at the top have not been coded to the correct department. So I can see by the location that they were Amazon sales. So I'm just going to select these 4 at the top, and I'm going to reclassify, and I'm going to say the class for this should be online. And once I apply, it's going to deal with all of those, and there's nothing missing here. Now I could go through and do the same for my online equipment. Again, just check anything here that hasn't been coded and reclassify and change this to online sales. Okay, let's just do that for my reconditioned camera sales. Make sure we've got everything. Yeah, that looks fine. So let's go back to that report then. So we ran the profit and loss, and we said we wanted to see this report for classes, and then run reports. Okay, so remember I'm just focusing on the sales. Okay, so not specified, this is all expenditure. Now if I wanted to do this properly, I could go and split those costs, but I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to focus on the income, which means in this instance I'm not going to recode them. I just want to exclude not specified and admin. So I'm going to go back to my customise up here and to my filter, and this time when I go to my classes, I'm just going to say I just want to see online and shop. So I'm going to just specify what I want to see and then run the report. And there we go. So we've got a nice clean profit and loss, just showing our income by online or by the shop. Let's save this report. So let's call this by cost center. Okay. And save this customization, and we'll add it to the group that we created before and save. Now, there is a report called profit and loss by class. There is a report called profit and loss by location. But to be honest, I find it just as quick to run the profit and loss from here and then just change this now to location. So this time, remember for location, I said I'm interested in the particular selling channels. So let's see how we've done at our various selling channels. So run that report. And now, again, really useful. So I know I've done really well online, but am I selling more through Amazon, more through eBay, or more through my website? It's about putting good information in the client's hands to allow them to make great decisions. Okay, so I can see how I've done in each sector. I can see how I've done in each of the selling channels. I've just got one unspecified transaction here. And this time I'm just going to click in this transaction. It was a deposit. And I'm just going to put this one. Now what you'll notice here, I've got the class, but I can't specify on here the location. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to exclude this one from my report. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my report and I'm going to exclude not specified. So you've seen me do this before using the filter, and this time for all locations except not specified. Okay, so great report. And whilst I'm saving this customization this time, let's change this to selling channel. I'm sure what the question that's in your mind is, what if I want to see both? Okay, so that's what I'm going to show you next. What if I want to see, if you like, a matrix of both my departments by selling channel? So in order to do that, I'm going to introduce you to a great report in QuickBooks, and it's called the Custom Summary Report. So going back to my reports, and actually this time I'm just going to use the search box at the top. And because I know the name of it, I'm going to call it look for my Custom Summary Reports. Not coming up there. So if that doesn't appear for you, then just go over to your reports and use this search button here. Okay, so Custom Summary Report. Now, the beauty of this report, it looks just like your P&L. So let's just let this settle. So run this report. It looks just like your profit and loss, your income statement. The difference here is you're able to choose the verticals and the horizontals for this. So in terms of the verticals, I can choose to see this report by customers, suppliers, employees, classes, locations, products, services, etc., and even my balance sheet. Okay. In terms of the horizontal, I've got even more options here. Okay. So what I'm going to choose first is I'm going to choose to run this. I'm going to choose to run my verticals by classes and my horizontals by my selling channels, which were locations. And then run this report. Now, what you're seeing here is these are my cost centers. These are where the sales have come from for each cost center. But something you just need to bear in mind, the basis of this report was the income statement. It was the profit and loss, which means that each of these figures is not just the sales. So if you see that Amazon £74,000 here, if I click into the detail of that, you'll see that it is the sales, but it's also, if I keep going down, it's also the cost of sales as well. So here are the cost of sales as well. Now, just bear that in mind. If what you actually want is just a sales report, which is what I would like, I'm going to go back to this summary report. And just as we did before, I'm going to say that I want this report just to show me my sales, okay? So I'm going to go and customize this report. And in terms of my filter, I'm going to choose this time the distribution account. Actually, which categories, which nominal accounts are even in this report, okay? So for here, I can choose by group, or I can be very specific, okay? So in my instance, I'm going to choose just all income accounts and then run my report. Now, much more streamlined. It's taken out admin altogether because there was no income there, and it's just said for your shop, Amazon, eBay, shop sales, etc., and online rather, and for the shop, just this annoying little £303, which we know now that we can take that out. Okay, so let's save this report. This is my sales summary. By outlet. Okay, so we're happy with that. I'm going to save that customization to my sales group. Now, if I take this report, okay, I could take the same report, the same data, and I could run it a different way. Okay, so if I choose here, instead of saying this by customer, if I run this by, let's do this by products and services, by location. Okay, so what did we sell and in which outlets? Okay, and this time run the report. Okay, now here's the beauty of this. Now I'm seeing which cameras sold where best. Okay, so what's selling on eBay, what's selling on Amazon? Is it a different clientele? Okay, we've chosen not to sell any reconditioned online. We're still doing those through the shops. So you've got similar information that you've got before, but a whole different skew, if you like, on that information. Really, really useful information. And here's why we use products and services. Without it, all you have, this is the beginning of the year when we didn't know any better, and we just put through all of our sales as sales, and that gives you no information at all. Okay, so that's the richness of customizing your QuickBooks and being able to customize the report to get that level of information. Okay, so I'm going to save this report. I'm just going to change this to sales details by outlet, save my customization, change the name here, and now we're adding to the level of detail that we're able to give our client and save that report. Fantastic. Right, so now we've looked at how we can specify and categorize our sales by cost centers, by department. I want to show you something that's quite new in QuickBooks, and it's called tags. Now, what tags allow you to do is very similarly to classes and location, to categorize your transactions, but these might be for things that you need to measure on a smaller scale, but you don't actually want them to be on your entire P&L by category or by class or by location. Okay, a really good example of that I'm going to show you now. So let me show you first how you get to tags. So you go to banking, and then it's the fourth option here, which is tags. Now, if you don't have that option, then you need to turn tags on in your system. And to do that, you're going to go to Account and Settings, and under your company, you'll see QuickBooks Labs. In Labs, you'll find, in fact, I'll show you. In Labs, you will find functionality that is in beta or is coming, and you have the opportunity to turn them on to enhance the system. And you can see I've turned on my tags, okay, and done. So I'm going to show you how to create a new tag. And what I want to do, because I've had extraordinary costs, or the client has, for 2020, there's lots of expenditure on the P&L that's very specific to dealing with COVID, health and safety, more equipment, etc. And maybe when I present information to them or they present it to the bank, they want to be able to say, look, these costs for some of the year were actually extraordinary. So I'm going to create a new tag first. Over here, new. Now, there's a tag group and there's individual tags. Think of this as the parent and the child. Okay, so you want to create the group first. So I'm going to create a group that I'm just going to call COVID 1920. Let's hope that 2021. Let's hope it's soon over. You're able to choose a color, okay, to specify your particular group. I'm going to choose red and save. Okay. So now you can add tags to this group. So I'm going to here choose add, and I'm going to just create, let's call this health and safety, and add. It doesn't like my ampersand. Let's spell this properly. Health and safety. Oh, it did create, beg your pardon. So the next one that I'm going to create is IT costs, and add. You can see them creating underneath here. And then the last one I'm going to call, let's do equipment, and add. Okay. So having created those three, I'm happy with that, and I'm going to say done. Now I'm using that to measure expenditure. Okay. Another thing that you could use this for is if you had sales reps, for example, and you wanted to measure, you want to tag the income so that you could calculate their bonuses. So let's just do that. I'm going to say new group, and then we're going to call this sales reps, and save. Blue group, and we've got two sales reps only. We've got James and we've got Carol. Okay, so James and Carol are sales reps, and done. All right, so how do we start tagging transactions? Well, the first thing I want to do is health and safety. Now, I know that the client has been to Costco and bought lots of PPE, visors, etc. So I'm going to go to the expenses and suppliers. And because I know particularly who I'm looking for, I'm going to go to Costco. So from here, you can see IT costs. So they bought some equipment, etc. We've got here health and safety. So it's this transaction here for health and safety first. And this is where you can add the tags. Now, click on the drop down, you can see all of my COVID group and all of my sales rep. If I select health and safety, watch what happens to the other red options. They disappear. So you can only select one item from a group here at a time, which makes sense. Okay. This is not in relation to any sales rep at all. So that's all I'm going to do, and save and close. Okay. Also at Costco, these IT costs, extra equipment for people who then are working from home. So I'm going to tag this as IT costs, and save and close. Okay. Now, when you have your bank feed linked, you can now also tag directly from the bank feed. So let's go across to banking. And from here, I'm going to select, I'm going to search in order, and I'm looking for curries because I know that we've spent some money on IT in curries. I'm going all the way down. In fact, I'm not going all the way down. I'm just going to search for curries. Okay, so I know all of this was going backwards and forwards, buying things from curries. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this large one here, and I'm going to tag this here to equipment. Now, do bear in mind, if I save, add this one, if I was going to tag all of them, let me just add the VAT. If I use the normal batch processing on the bank feed and go to update, you can't add the tags here. However, you can use the tags when you're creating rules, okay? So you can set that at that level. So let's see what that's given us, okay? So I want to go now to my banking and back to tags. And here, COVID 2020, I've got 3 transactions, and I can also run a report, or I can edit the group. So I'm going to run a report, and here it's just going to give me a transaction list of what I have done. What I want to see really is a profit and loss report. So if I go back to my reporting, if I just search for tag, you'll see now that there is a profit and loss by tag group. Okay. So by running this profit and loss by tag group, I'm just going to change this to all dates and run my report. Now, what you need to do here is specify which tag groups. If you just run this report, it automatically defaults to untagged on group tags. You need to select your specific tag from the drop-down list. And now when I run that report, you can see all of my expenditure for my COVID costs for the year as health and safety and IT costs. Okay, let's just see what I had in equipment. Let's put this back to IT costs. Okay, so now when I go back to my COVID report, you can see what I've spent in each area in the year so far. Now, I expect this tagging to get better and better and be able to batch, allocate, etc. That's my hope. But at the moment, it's fantastic, and it gives you that ability to get down even more fine tuning of your data and get very specific reports out of QuickBooks. Okay. So we've looked at sector by sector. One other thing that I want to look at just before we get to cash flow is how we can use projects this time where we have sometimes a client is doing a time limited promotion, or they're trying something new and they want to be able to measure the cost for something very specific. Now, in the case of our client, they've decided to pivot and they've decided to start online training. Okay, so we've created a new project for online training. So we've done one course. I'm going to show you how to set up for a second one. Okay, so I'm going to do new project, and we're going to call this, they've decided that they think that they could now do corporate training. Okay, so they're having companies buying equipment and they want to sell the training to them. Okay, so this is for a specific customer. Okay, so they're selling this to the local council. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And at the moment we've got a blank project. Now we can add to this just like we'd create any ordinary transaction. Okay, so we can track our expenses, our bills, our hours, and track our invoices. Okay, so we have a bill and we buy some specialized equipment. Okay, back to our friends at Costco, and we've bought some specialized equipment. Bear with me. and we've bought some IT equipment. We don't want to tag it, but what we do want to say is we want to say that this equipment, we bought some new PCs, this equipment was specifically, let's just make it, this equipment was specifically for training for the Borough Council. Remember, I could still specify here that it was online, and I might want to take out and just say, I'm going to do it through the website. Okay, so I'm going to save and close that cost. So now you can see that IT cost here. The other thing that I could do is I could record some time. So if I brought in a contractor especially for this, so I brought in a contractor called John Boy, and I'm going to pay him £30 an hour to do a 3-hour training course for me. So it's going to cost me £90. Okay, so I'm going to save and close that time activity. Now John Boy will later give me an invoice, but I'm going to save and close that activity. Now the last thing that I want to do, let me just edit this. So I do want to make it billable. Put my time cost in here and save and close. Okay, so I've got some time cost in there as well. And then the last thing I'm going to do is then invoice the client. So I'm going to invoice the Borough Council, and we selling them some online training. Now again, because I've set up the course here, I can measure how many units I've sold. So we've got 15 people on the course, but I want to reward my sales team for promoting this course. So I'm going to tag this to Carol as well. Okay, so my class is online. So look at the different ways that we're measuring this particular transaction. So save and close. And now I can see from here that I've made £1,000 in income. My costs were 290. I've made £710 profit with a 71% profit margin. Okay, because I also tagged Carol. Okay, if I change this money in here to look at sales reps, I can see that against Carol's name, there's £1,000. And I'm sure James will get off and going shortly. Okay, so that's just some new functionality that I think is just really, really useful. So now that we've looked at how we can segment our expenditure, the key thing here for this client is about the cash. We want to pull all of this together. We want to show him how he's doing from a cash flow point of view, and we want to present this report to our client. So where I'm going to go now, I'm just going to take you back to the dashboard, and you'll see that we've got some great overview here. But the first thing I want to do is just show you some of the reports that you can run, talk about the differences, and then look at how we can use the cash flow in QuickBooks. So if I go to reports and I just search for cash here, you'll see we've got the monthly cash flow and we've got a statement of cash flows. So the statement of cash flows for last year, let me just change this to last year. This is going to measure what our net income was, and then what are the adjustments to that net cash? Well, stock, we've got creditors, we've got net wages, etc. So we're looking at the movement of cash. We've had a bounce back loan. Cash at the end of the period is measured here. So that's just a statement of what's happened historically. Okay, we have a very similar report that does that on a monthly basis. So we've got the monthly cash flow report, and this report is giving you more detail. So it is telling you the balance, but it's giving you the breakdown of transactions that have occurred in February. Okay, so if I did that for last year, obviously this list would be much longer. Okay, so it's giving you an idea of what actually went through on your cash flow for the period. But as we know, cash flow is all about what's about to happen. I know what's happened, that money's gone, but based on my upcoming commitments, how am I going to fare in the next month, 2 months? Now, again, in QuickBooks, we can run the cash flow, and this new feature, again, you'll find in QuickBooks Labs. So I've turned mine on. You'll be able to turn this on, again, by going to your settings and QuickBooks Labs. And you'll find it here, and it's called the Cash Flow Dashboard widget. Right, so in order for this to work and to give you the kind of information that you need, you do need to link your bank feed, okay? Because if I take you into the cash flow planner, it's measuring the movement in my bank feed, okay? So you can see here, I'm looking at the last 12 months. You can see what happened. There you go, April, May, and things picked up. They've evened off again, and this is where I am now, okay? If I want to see that in terms of money in and money out, I just switch to that view. What happened in May? I can tell you what happened in May. We got the 50k bounce back loan into this business, and then these are our normal trading months, and things are beginning to tail off. The beauty of this report is that it's not only is it dynamic in that it's picking up your current information, you also have the ability to help it to understand what's going to happen. So it will do two things. In terms of what's coming up, so it's telling you today's balance, but what's coming up? Well, you can see these bills that are about to go through. There I am, still shopping at Costco. It's also looking at my payroll. So it's looked and seen what's happened in the past, and it's starting to remember things, okay? I can also choose when I'm going to pay upcoming bills. So for example, if I find I've got an upcoming IT bill here, I can choose to change when this bill is going to be paid. So it's due at the end of April. I'm going to defer that till the end of May. Okay. I can choose how much of it also that I'm going to pay. So let's say they've given me a bit of problems and I've said, look, I want something fixed. We'll pay you at the end of May, and I can update this. And it's going to update also my cash balance. Okay. So you can begin to help QuickBooks to predict what is going to happen in the future. And like anything, data is king, okay? So the better information that you give it, the better. And also the better bookkeeping that you do, the better information. So in order to do this, you not only want to link the bank feed, but you want to keep them current. You want to be clearing the bank as regularly as you can so the information is current as well, okay? So once I've got this report, this is not a report that currently you can print, but this is a report that's really good to have conversations with your client when you have that meeting. Now, speaking of the meeting with the client, what I want to do is I want to send my client a report of the sales transaction that I've done so far, and then I'm going to have a meeting with the client, and I'm going to use the cash flow planner and other tools to have a conversation with my client about what's happening in their business. So I'm going to pull together my reports and go to my reports section over here. We've looked at standard, looked at custom. I'm going to go to my management reports. So this is a way of bringing together a PDF version or a Word version of what we've done so far. So I'm going to use my basic report that already exists, and I'm going to edit this report. Okay, there's my logo looking lovely. I'm going to go to my report section. From here, I'm actually going to remove the reports that are already there, and I'm going to start adding in some new reports. So at the top of this list are the reports that I created already. So there's my customized profit and loss, add a new report. There's my sales by cost center, by selling channel, and let's do by detail. So lots of rich reports there that I can use for the client. Let's do one more summary. Okay, I'm going to save this report and let's have a look. Oh, let's preview this report, see what we've got. So these are just some of the reports that we've created by cost center, by selling channel, by outlet. So I'm happy with that, and call this sales report and save and close. Okay, so I've sent that to my client. Now here's what I'm going to do. Having sent the report to the client, I'm going to go back to reports and to the performance center. I'm scheduling a call with my client to talk over the reports, and I'm using the performance center to give them a much more visual representation as to what's happening in their business. So when we have that conversation about revenue, not only will I have the report in front of me, I'm going to change this to last year, and I've got a visual representation for them of what happened in their business. And yes, there's clients who like to see the detail, but you also have clients who the visual is really going to help them. Where's your money going? Who do you owe? What have your expenses been like over the last year? So if you prepare this in advance, get all the reports that you want together, and then have that Zoom, whatever meeting with your client to review how their business is done. Included in this, you can even do the net profit, the current ratio for the client, quick ratio as well, and you can alter what you see up here as well. Okay, so at the end of this, you've pulled together some reports for the client and you're going to have that meeting. So what we've shown you is how, if you customize QuickBooks, if you get your data set up in the right way, you can have great reports for you and your clients. So I'm hoping that information has proved really useful. Thank you for joining me for this last hour, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.